Are you ready for the public comment?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Larry Berry.
Not in the audience. There's a person named Larry, but with no last name. Then I promoted him to panelist. If this is Mr. Berry, you can go ahead.
All right, somehow I got muted. Can you hear me, Stacy?
Yes,
can you say something?
yes, we can hear you.
All right.
Mr. Berry.
Yeah, I disagree with a lot of what the presentation had to have to say. One of the things you left off the schools that we built on Camp Pendleton on that ledger there. There was all that money that the taxpayers of Oceanside paid to build those schools, and we never received one penny, not one penny from the DOD and the base Camp Pendleton. So when people start crying about San Luis Rey and Garrison and Jefferson and why we have no money, it's because we built those schools in San Margarita, and I listed the other school up on on the base there as well, that we don't have any money to help them with their schools. I also have a problem with Shannon Soto.
Just a minute.
I keep asking her for the last 8 months to get a number for this, that how much real money is there, and it doesn't show that the money, it doesn't come up, doesn't figure into how much money we have to go on to the next project.
Timer.
It seems like it's just a bunch of phony money. So I think we got problems there, and we're heading for a disaster, a fiscal disaster. I think we should, and I just found out today about the bond issue, and our rating is just dropped tremendously for our bond rating to get money. So I think we gotta really crack down. And I've always said this as being a member of the CBOC. This is when the money gets tight. This is when the rubber meets the road, and this is where people screw up a lot, and we end up screwing over the taxpayers. So I would like to see a definite. Nobody runs your checkbook the way that the Oceanside Unified School District plays with this money. I want to know exactly how much money we have, not this money that we're promised, not this money that we think we're going to get. I want to see the money that we actually have in the bond that's left. Those numbers already tell me that there's no money left in the bond, and it's always this money from the state, which we know the state's going to screw us over. So I'm just hoping that we can, go at this with some honesty and with some integrity about what we're going to do with this, with the bond, the remaining money on this bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry, for your public comment.
With staff on a couple projects inside of the school district. First, want to say I thank everyone who has worked very hard during this COVID crisis in the sense of supporting our students and supporting our teachers and supporting our staff. But my fear is that what has happened at San Diego State with the premature return to campus and the COVID outbreak that's happening there, what happened also inside of Oceanside Unified School District. And my fear is that, say, for example, with elementary school children, if they return back to school, the expectation is that they don't touch anybody, they can't play at recess, they can't do PE, they can't do all the normal activities on a day-to-day basis that they have done previously. And they're just supposed to sit there, not touch anything, keep them to themselves, wear a mask. And that's not a reasonable expectation of anybody that's in elementary, middle, or even high school. That's not a reasonable expectation. And I know it's very difficult. I would be the first person to say, I want all of our kids back in the classroom where it's easier for them to have instruction, and it's easier for the work-life balance of most parents and guardians here inside of our district. But on the same respect, on the inverse, we have to protect our kids. We have to be risk adverse in the sense of protecting them from this virus, because at the end of the day, we do not want an outbreak where it's transmitted to our kids, to our teachers, to the staff, and we have a whole another mess on our hand that we cannot mitigate, and it becomes a lot bigger than what we're trying to do right now. So I'm in full support of staff. I'm in full support of the administration, of Dr. Vitale, Dr. Lovey, and of the board of keeping the schools closed, doing the virtual learning until it's to a point where we know it's going to be safe and it's not going to be harmful for our students and our scholars to return back to our school campuses. And that's the end of my comments. Thank you, everyone, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Michael.
Next speaker, Kevin McCarthy.
You're on, Mr. McCarthy.
Okay, would you please reset the clock? Because I've been watching you, and when people are having problems connecting, you start the clock and they lose 20 seconds. Number two, I want to tell you that my wife wanted to speak and you didn't bring her on board. So you're basically denying our constitutional right to be able to be or have our voices heard. So reset the clock, please, starting now, so I can say what I want to say. This board meeting meets, is it starting right now? Just let me know, please.
Yes, it is.
This board meeting is meeting monthly now. Once a month, I get to tell this board what I think. First, why aren't you meeting weekly? We deserve to have more updates and opportunities to address this board. This is supposed to be a crisis with people dying left and right, like what the guy who just got on was talking about. This is like a mayhem, you know. But actually, it's really nowhere near that situation. I'm not going to go into the numbers, but effectively for young people, there is 1 in 10,000 deaths. That's 1 in 10,000. That's like that's lower than the flu ever was. And in San Diego, over the past 6 months, 0 children under the age have died. That sounds like a lot, but if you go back to 2018, there were 6,500 people who died of the flu. Dr. Lovey is inaccurate on 2 points. There are over 5,000 children today under 18 who have been confirmed with COVID-19. And the number of hospitalizations has actually dropped to near 0 in week 36, which is the beginning of September. So what's my point? My point is that COVID-19 has minimal impact to children under the age of 20. This is backed up by the CDC, which states virtually the same points. A board member recently called out a parent and chided her for having a cavalier attitude towards returning students to the classroom. I would say that it is a board member who has a cavalier attitude. What makes her think that her opinion is less valid, the parent, or scientific than what makes the board member think that the parent's opinion is less valid? And why was she chastising that parent? I think this is an overall indication of the board's cavalier attitude and response to parents. What's my beef with the board? These are my kids, and I pay for the school board and the teacher's salary. 53% of parents said they wanted to go back to in-classroom, and 80% of teachers want to go back. Yet there's no plan for returning our kids back to the classroom, where I believe is the best place for them to get the education that we paid for. They're not getting that education. The problem, my wife and I cannot spend 100% of our time acting as a teacher for my kids. I have work, which I have been hugely pulled away from in order to monitor and attend to my students' education. What are other schools doing? Carlsbad is opening up for full-time classroom education starting on September 22nd. And Vista has plans to reopen on October 20 for in-classroom education. But this board has not made it clear when we are going to go back to classroom education. Our children are becoming addicted to computers thanks to this overemphasis and reliance on computer learning. My kids average 12 to 14 hours of screen time per day with slighter amounts on the weekends. And my high schoolers have assignments due on Sunday night at midnight so that they have work that must be done on the weekend. The net result is that they were always on their computer. Students lack the general clarity on what their reading and homework assignments are.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Time is up.
With the handling of assignments and grading as opposed to in-classroom learning is unmanageable. Many teachers do not put aside.
Sorry.
Thank you,
Next.
Kevin, for sharing. Next.
Next speaker, Tiffany Ketchum.
Let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Tiffany.
Hi. Hello, OUSD board, parents, teachers, and staff. My name is Tiffany Ketchum, and I'm a mom and advocate for my 4 children. We've been part of OUSD for 15 years. We have children this year that range from a senior to our youngest that are twins in 3rd grade. So we have 10 school years ahead of us still. We have children with special needs, including immune compromise, and although we really want them to be able to return to school because that's what's best for their growth, we only want to see OUSD start to slowly phase back in when it can be done so with the ability to keep everyone safe. I'm not sure exactly how this can be properly done without the proper financial supports to do so and everyone on a board to mitigate the spread. What is concerning to me is things like SDSU's total number of cases as of Sunday was 286 since the start of the semester. That is a huge number to have within a short period of time and contains many individual clusters. What factors into that is that you do not have the ability to control what individual families, staff, and students are doing in their personal lives outside of school. So until the cases in our county are in control so that families and staff all feel safe to return, especially our vulnerable populations, I don't think it's feasible for OUSD to return to in-person learning at this time, even though I want my children in school. I also have to be realistic and accept the changes among us to get through this together. Our family has lost 2 family members to confirmed COVID, whom were healthy and vibrant members of society before, and I know the ravages of this disease can have. And still, new things are being discovered about children with COVID that can lead to possible permanent damage to their systems. We do not have the real knowledge we need to make proper decisions at this time. So I'd like to implore the board to consider these broader things and to follow all CDC and CDE guidelines before considering any changes to our current system, except for meeting the unmet needs of our most vulnerable youth, including those with special needs, that OUSD is currently out of compliance with, and getting our current system functioning better for online learning to occur now in the meantime. I believe that a delayed, slow, and phased-in approach is best for all, and that our vulnerable populations and our school staff must be considered as well as the students that need to return sooner to meet their unique needs, whom are being the most negatively affected by the absence of traditional in-person schooling and supports. I'd like to encourage parents to make your needs and questions known, to seek answers from our school administrators and our board. Stay safe and get involved, but try to keep it positive. We're all in this together, and all voices need to be heard, especially parents and teachers who truly know how classrooms run. I would like to privately pull the attentions board to unresolved issues that our family is having and request your assistance to get to the bottom of it. Thank you for your time and consideration. I strongly support Mike Blessing for District 5. Todd Madison would be a huge mistake for our district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Next speaker, Monique Combs.
Go ahead, Ms. Combs.
Thank you. Hi, and thank you for your time. I'm a special education teacher at the Adult Transition Program. I first want to say I know everyone's experience with distance learning is different, but I want to say that when it comes to my class, we are having huge success with my class and the support of my instructional assistants. We have at least 90% attendance every day. We learn, we bond, we're having fun. With that said, I want to make a plea to the district as me and my 30 or so coworkers at ATP will be the first to return to school, teaching adults nonetheless. Please, please do not reopen until all safety protocols, supplies, and systems are completely in place. Opening without all of the plan, all of the supplies that we have in this plan, which I really appreciate, are in place, not only puts the staff and students, but also puts the community at risk. Please take into consideration the recommendations that have been put forth by the WORPs, and I know will continue to come through. And let's please right now show the community that we really care. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique.
Kathy Morgan.
Go ahead, Ms. Morgan.
All right. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kathy Morgan, and I am a first grade teacher here at Oceanside. This is my 21st year teaching, and boy, do I miss seeing my kids' faces walk through my door every morning. I never thought I would long for the noise of 6-year-olds, and a truly quiet classroom would be so hard to come to every morning. However, it is where I am every day doing my very best to teach 22 first graders through distance learning. To say it has been challenging would be an understatement. I also know how incredibly difficult this is for my students and their families. I want nothing more than to see each and every one of my students in my classroom, but we are not quite ready. I have been on multiple reopening committees discussing how and when we can safely return to in-person learning. This process needs to be thoughtful, gradual, and done with the safety of students and staff being the #1 priority. Every OUSD campus needs to be safe for all students and teachers before we return. All campuses need directionality on the sidewalks for coming and going, hand washing and hand sanitizing stations, safety measures in classrooms and offices, such as appropriate plexiglass for our front offices and dividers for our classrooms, new lunch and playground procedures, everything to protect our students and teachers. There is more than I just mentioned that needs to be done. And yes, the list is extensive, but it is possible. Once these measures are in place, we will be able to begin a gradual shift from vigorous distance learning to the greatly missed in-person teaching. In addition to over 2 decades of teaching experience, I am also a mother. It pains me to see my boys missing out on their first days of middle and high school, but I know that their schools are not ready. They will have their first day of 6th and 9th grade when it is safe to return. I am very excited and hopeful about what Dr. Soto shared about equipment and modifications that are inbound to our school sites, and even more excited about what Dr. Vitale's measured path forward said about all facilities having their safeguards in place before we return. The right thing to do is to take our time to create safer environments for everyone. I know that waiting is hard. Patience is certainly not my best quality, but it would be a shame to recklessly rush into a reopening of schools without the proper equipment and procedures in place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy.
Rhonda Oliver.
Oh my God.
Go ahead, Ms. Oliver. Ms. Oliver, if you unmute, you're on to speak. Ms. Oliver, you've been promoted to a panelist. If you unmute your microphone, you'll be able to address the board.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we're able to hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board, staff, parents. I want to just say that I'm very disappointed that there is not, again, a plan to reopen to in-person learning for our students. I have been patient. I want to applaud the teachers and administrators that I've been working with over the last 3 weeks and even prior to that to make this as successful as it can be for my 5 children, but it's not enough. We need to get back in school. Again, I'm very, very disappointed that there's not more of a plan in place for these children to return to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that our last, or do we have one more?
No, that is our last, unless Vanessa McCarthy has entered the room.
There's nobody in the room with the name Vanessa, the last name of McCarthy, except for Mr. McCarthy who already spoke. The combination of those two names and our phone number that was listed.
They might be using the same computer. Just throwing that out there. All right, do you see anybody on there, or can we continue?
I think we're going to try to bring Mr. McCarthy back in.
Okay, well, wait a second.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so if my wife, Vanessa, come here. You want to speak? Go. Hello? You want to speak? Go. Yes. You know, this is ridiculous. This is wrong, actually, that you should hold a public meeting in this way where we are actually not allowed to speak. Can you get up here? You're up.
All right, can we start the clock when she starts speaking, please?
I'm here.
Great, thank you. We'll restart the clock.
I have been here the entire time. You called my name. I was here. You did not let me in.
I believe there was some confusion because it's under the same name as your husband. So
No,
I
it's
think,
not. I've
All
been
right.
on a separate call on my phone downstairs.
all right, we apologize. Would you like to speak?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that rather than give a big speech like everybody else has done, you know, I don't have a lot of confidence in the board, and I want to second what somebody else said at the beginning, and that was, you should all resign. You have done a horrible job at mishandling this entire thing from spring to now. You are disappointing our children. You are not following science. You're not following guidelines, and the media needs to know about how you have mishandled this entire thing. They should all know. You should be all exposed for what you've done. I love my kids' teachers. I'm not so happy with you guys, but I will say that the people that I have spoke to that are at the schools that my 3 children are at have told me the same thing, have reiterated and backed up what I've just said, that you guys are mishandling this whole thing from start to finish. The fact that you do not have a reopening plan for our 6th through 12th graders is abhorrent. I think the media should know about that too. I think other school districts in our area have had reopening plans. They have put it out there. I have copies of them. And I just can't understand why you don't have a reopening plan for our school. Why it's taking you this long to even get a reopening plan without dates on the little presentation that you gave for K through 5. What's more is that while you make nice, oh, we're going to listen to what you say and take into consideration and acknowledge, that's all great. Those are all words, but what are you doing about it? You're going to listen to comments. You learn how to placate people who are angry and upset. That's all you know how to do. And my kids are failing. My kids are not doing well. Emotionally, They're not doing well socially. And that part of this plan, you're not taking into consideration. You're all worried about their physical safety, okay? Physical distancing, the mask, the PPE. What about the rest of their safety? What about their emotional safety? You cannot socially, emotionally support them on a computer. So I think you should all resign. Thanks.
Thank you. I believe that's our last one. So that opens it up for board discussion or any additional questions you have. So moving to our next item, which is my favorite. Item 13, public comments on non-agenda items. It looks like we have 4 individuals. I'll turn it over to Anne.
Our first speaker, Elizabeth Reeves.
Ms. Reeves, you're available to speak now.
Yes, great, thank you. So good evening, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Reeves. I have 2 children in elementary school within Oceanside, and I apologize, this probably would have been better earlier, but I'm new to this system. I work in public health and I'm active duty military, as is my husband. And so like many families with essential workers, or other challenging circumstances, we have to rely on outside assistance during the day to allow our children to participate in virtual learning. And my concern is perhaps specific to elementary age children and in regards to determining the proper balance for participation, attendance, and grading. I'd like to feel a little bit more confident that my children will have the ability to learn, but also be assessed on their own abilities and understanding rather than on my ability to facilitate all their assignments. Specifically, I have concerns that those in early education are really dependent on others to participate because assignments now include going to websites and downloading or uploading information and reading sometimes technical instructions. And for our children who depend on group childcare facilities, which must balance the individual schedules of every child on site, it could be a significant challenge to keep up with the schedules when they involve additional teachers or special classes like PE or music and a variety of interactive programs. I think it's probably quite reasonable for secondary level students and even upper elementary to maintain expectations as they can generally work independently, but younger children don't get emails, they don't get texts when schedules change. Those with language barriers don't always follow the teacher's directions well enough to perform the daily independent work. And our childcare facilities have to assist in managing passwords and logins, multiple programs and multiple children to be able to understand what's due at any given moment. So I thank the school system staff for working really diligently to ensure access to a wide variety of curriculum items for the school year, which I trust works well for many students and families, but I would recommend some additional options for our youngest learners. For example, maybe establishing a baseline level of participation to satisfy requirements that could allow for more flexibility for families who have competing needs. Our younger students are not the ones we're really as concerned with about skipping school on their own. Their absences are nearly always a reflection of their parents' needs, and they shouldn't be held liable when the parents can't fully support a full virtual schedule. And additionally, providing alternative options for independent and homework completion that's paper-based could make the young learner and their caregivers have a clear picture of what's required and when is it due. Flexible due dates could also be helpful for those of us who must wait until nights and weekends to be able to fully provide learning support and oversight of assignments. There's many children who are not able to remain in their own home during the day with a dedicated adult guardian who's not already occupied with their own employment or care for non-school aged children. And I would just like the school board to keep this in mind as they plan for future requirements, the same way you maintain an astute awareness of concerns like the digital divide and food insecurity. I'm certain the issue isn't unique to military members.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You're out of time.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker, Tony Menard.
There's nobody in the room named Tony Menard.
Next speaker, Michael Mitchell.
Stacy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Michael.
Okay, perfect. Hi, I'm Michael Mitchell, a guardian of 2 kids here in Oceanside Unified School District. What I wanted to speak on tonight is about the new proposed bond measure that is going to be voted upon this fall. And my viewpoint right now, I'm neutral to voting no for this new bond measure. And my reasoning for it is this, is that for the first 2 bonds, I voted yes. And particularly back in 2000, when the first one was advertised to the residents of Oceanside, it was advertised as, this is going to be, good for the students and for the scholars, and it's going to help modernize most of all the campuses here in Oceanside. Then another administration came to us and said, hey, we didn't have enough funding for the first one, and we need a second bond to help complete the projects that weren't completed with the first bond. And I voted very happily yes for both bonds. And now my fear is this, is that we have a third bond that you're asking myself and the citizens of Oceanside that's inside of the boundary of the Oceanside Unified School District, and you're asking us to vote for a third bond. And my fear is that it's not going to cover all the projects that is needed. So we're close now to $400 million. That's almost $500 million. And there's no guarantee now that all the projects and all the school sites will be covered. And on top of all that, with a lot of the existing architecture, I've poured over and I've looked over all the architectural plans and the designs. A lot of the designs are back from 2008, 2009. And I'm not very confident that a lot of the designs and all the architecture plans are current or relevant for 2020. And so with these concerns right now, my position is I'm voting no for this new bond, and I'm not on board right now for this new bond measure for those reasons. And I thank you for letting me speak this evening and respectfully disagreeing for this bond measure.
Thank you, Michael.
Next speaker, Todd Madison.
Go ahead, Mr. Madison. Ms. Madison, you've been promoted to panelist. You've been able to speak for about 45 seconds now.
Oh, Greg, there we go. Thanks. So Todd Madison again, I'm sure everybody listening knows I'm a candidate for school board. Oceanside has some great schools, exceptional teachers, caring staff. Unfortunately, over the years, we've seen the district consistently ignore the clearly expressed wishes of both parents and teachers on some very big issues. Our teachers have been doing their best at distance learning. There's no question it's a Herculean effort, but it just doesn't work for all situations and all kids. Last week, I walked through a neighborhood just across from Lowe's. It's a neighborhood of hardworking people. I'm guessing a lot of people there need to have 2 earners at work and rarely have the luxury of a stay-at-home spouse or a job that allows them to work from home. I asked one woman there, how is distance learning working for your kids? Her answer was, how the heck am I supposed to know? I just got home from work. My kids have been home all day studying. She used air quotes, and I have no idea what they're doing. The difficulties that families like that are going through is something I find distressing. There's nothing even the best teacher in the world can do to change that. I've now stood in front of the board at least 38 times in the last 5 years, and in those appearances, I've repeated over and over again advocacy for the priorities that parents and teachers have said are important to them. Parents and teachers want smaller class sizes, enrichment classes for disadvantaged and advanced kids, better technology and instructional materials, more facility maintenance, and a bunch of other things. But why don't we see any of that being done? Since 2012, funding has gone up over $5,000 a student at a rate over 3 times faster than inflation. The district has repeatedly chosen to ignore the priorities of parents and teachers in favor of using the money for its own priorities, usually higher pay and benefits. It's not a pandemic-related issue, as was said earlier. This is an issue that existed long before COVID. And of course, here we see the district also disregarding the numbers showing what parents want again. Perhaps it's time we put someone on the board willing to stand up and speak out on behalf of those parent and teacher priorities. I would encourage anyone who wants to join me in that effort to remember Todd Madison when you vote this November. You can go to toddforkids.com. That's todd4kids.com. Thanks.
All right. Do we have any more speakers, or does that conclude?
That's it, Stacy.
All right, thank you. So on item 14, any board or staff discussion as we finish up the night tonight?
Just thank you again to everyone who's been pushing through the ambiguity. We're working on it, and we're going to make sure that kids are safe and they're learning.